Right. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. Hope that was refreshing and re-energizing enough for us to continue with the seminar. Right. So we shall move forward. Next up, I would like to invite Dr. Miandy Munusamy to present on academia and policy research, the international context. Please welcome.
Thank you, Madam MC. Madam Miss.
Ken.
Voice. I'm a little bit nervous because first time presenting in front of my boss. Before we start our presentation, let me introduce myself. Dr. Guan is my former boss, and Dr. Nazri also my former boss, and Professor Emeritus Dato' Moshidi also my former boss. So I'm a little bit nervous because I'm presenting in front of my, it can say, my mentor for my PhD. So I did my PhD from 2017 to 2020. I always refer to Prof. Moshidi because I did on internationalization of higher education. So he is expert on higher education, so I defer to him. And my boss, Dr. Nazri, and Dr. Kwan. So they bring me to USM today and give me opportunity to, I will share my experience, what I have done at international level. So my topic will be academia and policy research, the international context. So Dr. Guan already set the agenda. He already talked about what is happening in Malaysia. Now I will talk what is happening in overseas, but I'm not going to talk how countries is developing the policy, but what we can take in from their policy and we can use as a reference to our country. So that is my presentation. Not moving. So my presentation will be focused on, I will share on the intergovernmental organization and multilateral cooperation, what is academia and policy research in multilateral cooperation, policy decision processes and stages, my experience and involvement on academia and multilateral cooperation, what is the challenges in developing a policies and way forward. Okay, introduction. You can see over there, there's a lot of multilateral organization or intergovernmental organization. So what is about intergovernmental or multilateral organization? The organizations are creating a platform. They're creating a platform for international cooperation, but it's not binding. So it doesn't mean whatever policy they implement, we need to follow. We need to see whether it's applicable for our country or not. So these are the organizations creating a platform for international cooperation to develop and enhance the education system. It also influences education activities through policy learning and sharing of best practices. So you can see some of the intergovernmental or multilateral organizations such as the UNESCO, World Trade Organization, OIC, European Union, ASEAN, CIMIO, CPSC, ASEM, APEC, Commonwealth, World Bank, OECD. So these are the few organizations that influence the education system around the globe under multilateral cooperation. So it encompasses a certain block of countries, generally act as an important mediator for policy influences. So multilateral cooperation is entirely generated through political work. So it's just now I mentioned, so whether you want to involve or not involve is based on the country, whether they want to take it, whatever the international organization or intergovernmental organization develop policy, we need to follow or not, is depend on the country. So my presentation will focus on multilateral cooperation because I worked in multilateral unit for past 10 years. So I will focus my presentation on multilateral cooperation, but basically I just touched down what is bilateral. So bilateral is government to government cooperation. So bilateral is a government to government organization and a cooperation and reciprocal. For example, is an MOU between Malaysia and Australia on higher education. So this is a government-to-government cooperation. But I'm talking about multilateral. There's a certain block of country involved in organization. Okay. Next, please. So now I'll touch on the academia and policy research and multilateral cooperation.
Okay.
Okay. So now we see what is a policy transfer process in multilateral organization. So normally what we what do you call it, little bit theory, because I did PhD on this, so I want to share about little bit theory on this. The process of policies and ideas of nation or political system is used to develop policies in other nation. It doesn't mean that we take 100% policies from other country and develop in our country. We see whatever is relevant to our country and we apply. For example, European higher education area, Bologna process is a comparable. You can do a bachelor or master's degree in any country in Europe, but it cannot applicable in ASEAN. So we see whatever is good for us and we can apply. So that is the policy transfer process. And it helps policymakers to acquire and learn necessary knowledge from a nation or international organization to develop and enhance their country policies. So Cohen in 2016 he said a successful education policies in one place could be transferred to another country. So this is the more about this policy transfer process you can read in my article with my supervisor as I put it over there. Maybe later the Secretariat will share the slide, then you can look through the articles. Next slide, please. So now we go for policy decision process and stages. So because we are in IPPTN, everybody, I don't know about how this CTAP was established in IPPTN. So me, Dr. Nazri and Dr. Moshidi involved from the beginning how the CTAP was established in IPPTN or in Malaysia. So I want to share how this policy decision process on CTAP. First in CCM, 16 CCM in Cape Town in 2006, a proposal was made by Dr. John Robert, the then Secretary General Association of Commonwealth Universities of ACU. So there's a proposal to establish what you call tertiary education facilities. So this is the starting point. Next, in 2007 and 2008, senior meeting was convened to discuss more about this proposal. So Malaysia was involved. Dato', you want to the meeting? Okay. So there's other senior officials. So in 2007 and 2008, 2 meetings of senior officials were convened, attended by a representative from Barbados, Jamaica, Malta, Malaysia, India, South Africa, and UK. So all these countries are interested to establish this Commonwealth Tertiary Education Facility. But however, in 17 CCM, so this meeting held in KLCC in Kuala Lumpur in 2009, I first joined government during this meeting. The 3 proposals in connection with the CTAP were presented. So after discussion, Malaysian proposal was accepted to establish the Commonwealth Tertiary Education during the 18 CCM. Malaysian proposal to accept CTAP in Malaysia was presented and subsequently endorsed at the 18 CCM in Mauritius in 2012. So this is the beginning process. Now, next slide, please. So after the ministerial level meetings already agreed the establishment of CTAP in Malaysia, now we need to look at the process in Malaysia because we need to look at all the laws, what we need to done to establish this Commonwealth Tertiary Education in Malaysia. So what happened in 2013, Cabinet agreed to the establishment of CTAP. So in 2012, after the 18 CCM, USM and my division, International Relations Division, they created this a memorandum Jemaah Menteri Cabinet paper. Then it was presented to the cabinet meeting and in 2013 this was agreed. Then CTAP was officially established on the 1st August 2013 and based at IPPTN USM. So soft launch was held in 25th of November in 2014. And the first director of the CTEC is Professor Emeritus Dato Dr. Moshidi Sirat, former Director General of Higher Education. Now currently Director of CTEC is Associate Professor T.S. Dr. Wan Fatma Zuhara Wan Mustafa. So this is the process of a policy decision made at international level, how a center or any policy decision made at the higher level at the international organization. So it is not easy to establish a center in Malaysia. If you know the Commonwealth, they have more than 50 countries. So Malaysia was chosen. So we are the best. That's why CTEP was established in Malaysia. So we need to know how this process was happened. It is not easy to present in front of minister and convince them that we can establish a good tertiary education facility. Next slide, please. So just now I already explained about the sample, how a CTEF was established at Malaysia. Now I want to inform you all or present about the stages involved in policy decision at international level. Sorry, I don't have a story because my age is my boss and two bosses are experienced. So I'm a young boy, so I don't have a story to tell. Sorry. So my boss later after the afternoon presentation will share a lot of his story. Okay, so the stages involved in policy decision at international level. So first, proposal should come from the multilateral or international organization. Everybody asks how we supposed to know there's a proposal from the multilateral or international organization. What we supposed to do is we need to read through the ministerial statement or conclusion by the chair. Whatever meeting held at the international or multilateral organization, after the meeting, they will come out with the statement. From the statement, there will be some sentences telling that we ministers interested to have this. Then from there, we know already that Commonwealth or APEC or ASEM or UNESCO, they're looking forward for some idea or policy decision. Then what to do? Next, interested party need to prepare concept note. So if we are interested, then we prepare the concept note. How we prepare the concept note is not easy. We are like a university, we need to have engagement with stakeholders. So what we're supposed to do? Preparation of concept note need to be done by intended nation through a consultation of stakeholders and experts in the field. Then the selection of expert to be approved by the stakeholders. I mean stakeholders means if you are talking about higher education issue, then the Ministry of Higher Education. If you are talking about education issue, then you must go to Ministry of Education. If you are talking about health issue, then you must go to Ministry of Health. So that is the dimension about stakeholders. Because I don't want to mention Ministry of Higher Education only. Next, what to do? Expert convene meeting to draft the proposal for the preliminary assessment of the stakeholders. Then present the proposal endorsement of top management meeting. So the top management meeting of the ministry, you need to go there and present and convene them. Okay, we have a good paper and concept note. Finally, you present the proposal on behalf of the stakeholders in the international meeting. That is done by Dr. Moshidi during the establishment of CTEC. Okay, next slide, please. So after you present at the ministerial meeting and at the top management meeting of the ministry, what you need to do, maybe they have some comments. You edit the proposal in accordance to the meetings, comments and inputs. Then prepare cabinet paper. If already top management and ministerial level already agreed with your paper, then prepare cabinet paper in cooperation with the stakeholders for the approval of the government. And if already government approves, then establish the center or specific project in accordance with the decision of the government and ministerial team. Then you report the progress of the center or specific idea. Then after a scheduled period, maybe we need to sign MOU between the Secretariat and the country. Then after 5 or 10 years, you re-evaluate what achievement you have done. Then for the future consideration, because normally MOU will be active for 5 years plus 5 years. Then after that, you need to look again what achievement you have achieved so far. Then government need to consider whether we need to retain the center or we need to abolish. So we need to be very careful on this. Next slide, please. This is mean I already come to my half of my presentation. The way to get started is quiet talking and begin doing. But I cannot quiet here. If I quiet here, then my presentation will finish. Okay. Next, I will share my real experience when I worked in overseas. So next slide, please. So when I start my job, April 2009 in the International Relations Division in Ministry of Higher Education, my boss tasked me to take care of ASEM. So ASEM is Asia-Europe meeting. There's one under the ASEM, there's a ASEM education process. We ASEM only have the Secretariat. The first Secretariat was established in Bonn, Germany. After that, it was moved to Jakarta and Belgium. Currently, it was in Italy. So I was seconded to the ASEM Education Secretariat Jakarta and Belgium. So during my tenure at the Ministry of Higher Education, I was seconded to Jakarta. During my PhD, I was seconded to Belgium. So because my PhD on ASEM education process and internationalization of higher education. So during this secondment, I was involved in drafting ministerial statement. So when drafting the ministerial statement, I need to know what are the 50 countries under the ASEM is doing. So I need to read all the website and articles about the other country to draft the ministerial statement. It is not easy job because you need to know, because European and ASEAN is different. So we need to know what to write, what language we need, what is the language mean in English, but how to write sentences. Then I also participate in the working group meetings and task force. So it is not easy to involve in working group meeting because everybody has their own idea. So we need to come to a consensus. So how we as a, okay, I'm as a Malaysian, how we want to set the agenda, they need to follow our idea. So for example, during the meeting of ASEM Education Ministers meeting in 2013 in Kuala Lumpur, again, I need to mention about Dr. Mushiri. He come out with, why don't we put idea on student mobility? Because we want to study in overseas, but how we want to attract European students to come to Malaysia? So then, Dato presented a paper on student mobility, balanced mobility. So we do the program in Malaysia, European students come to Malaysia. So because we want to balance the mobility. So until now, the program is still on at the Asia-Europe Institute of University Malaya. First, we have presented the paper in 2013. First pilot project was convened in 2015. So more than, I think more than 1,000 students have arrived in Malaysia under this mobility program. So I also involved in prepare write-up for journals, a website and magazines, and prepare meeting documents, involved in negotiation. Negotiation is not easy. So when the Secretariat was in Jakarta, then it want to move to Belgium because it's a European term. So no one want to take up the Secretariat. So I'm at the Secretariat of Jakarta. I write email to all the countries. Are you interested? Then we go and visit them and talk to them. What is the benefit if you have the Secretariat? I hope one day the Secretariat will come to Malaysia, but I don't know when it's going to happen. And I also analyzed the country report for the preparation of policy papers and stock taking report. So what does it mean by stock taking report? Means under the ASEM education process, every country, they have their own programs. So they will report to the Secretariat, then I will analyze and do the report. So how many students participate in the program? So what is the objective and what is so far achieved? So what is the way forward of all these programs? So we do in the stock taking report, and it was presented by the ASEM Education Secretariat during the ministerial meeting. So I represented the ministry, ASEM Education Secretariat, I presented the stock taking report. So this is the experience I'm dealing with the ASEM education process. Next slide. So, this is my experience currently. So currently I'm working in the Ministry of Education. So I deal with ASEAN, APEC, CCM is a Commonwealth Conference of Commonwealth Education Ministers meeting. ISESCO is UNESCO under Islam. It means Islamic. UNESCO it means Islamic. So SIMIO. So all this is under the multilateral cooperation. I involved in senior official and minister level meeting, prepared senior official and minister speech, analyze meeting documents, involved in preparation of concept note for projects, prepared meeting documents. So, for example, ISESCO, they're all dealing with Islamic. So I need to learn. So when I write the speeches, I need to start with Assalamualaikum, because the minister must speak. So as a Hindu, I need to write, because this is what we call learning process. So everything we need to know. That's why I said multilateral organization, you need to have a consensus. That's why when minister talk, you need to talk in general. So what other ministers will agree or not. We cannot share just what Malaysia have done. We also need to learn from other countries also. So this is my experience at the Ministry of Education. Next slide, please. So I already talked about my experience. So if you want to involve in multilateral, so what expertise we needed to deal with this international and multilateral organization? First, we need to acquire knowledge about other nations' policy. We need to know what policies they implement. Then only we can talk to the other country. Then create strong networking with the contact person or grab important information. So how we can create a networking? Just go to the website, see which person is involved in education or higher education. Just send email. Because, I don't know, ASEAN culture, we go for WhatsApp. But European culture, we look at the email. So they read email, they will reply. Then we can have a good network with them. Then actively involved in meetings and discussion with Malaysia's counterpart in the organization. So there in the, let's say in OECD, there will be a, officer in charge of ASEAN. Then we need to have a network with him. And identify best practices and the policies for other nations for reference and benchmarking. Just now I'll talk about the policy transfer process. It doesn't mean we bring the other country policies to our country. We need to use as a reference to develop our policies and create an amicable environment to learn and share best practices. So this is the expertise needed, and we want to involve in multilateral cooperation of international organization. Next slide, please. So now we come to the involvement of academia in multilateral cooperation. So how you can involve in multilateral organization in international meetings? First, you need to represent the ministry or stakeholders attending the working group meeting, such as the Human Resource Development Working Group under APEC. Participate in steering committee meeting or specific task force. For example, Brazil is under University Malaya, under Erasmus. Become a member of advisory committee. So, for example, under SIMIO, there are 26 centers in the 11 ASEAN states. Then you can be one of the governing board members. Lead a specific project. Just now I mentioned about the AEI ASEM Summer School, I said Balanced Mobility Program. So this is how you can be visible. Next, involved in drafting meeting documents. So for example, for the last 21st CCM held in April 27-28, some of the professors and expertise in education and higher education involved in drafting this document. They have a small group created by the Commonwealth Secretariat. They drafted this 21st ministerial statement. So this is how you can involve in academia can involve in international meetings. Next slide, please. Okay, so just now I say how you can participate in multilateral organization. Now how to participate and become visible. Because we are at the ministry, we don't know what is happening at your what expertise you are, how we supposed to select you, we don't know. So what you need to do, you publish journal articles. I know you all every day as a KPI need to publish it, because when I do my PhD, they asked me to publish ISI articles. So if I didn't publish ISI, I have no more PhD. So like professor also, they want to achieve associate professor, they have a KPI to publish articles. But if you want to engage with stakeholders, you need to publish article related to what needed by the stakeholders. So for example, you write articles on student and staff mobility, and then you can write article on international education under guards, mode 1, mode 2, mode 3, mode 4. And there's some networks is open. It means you don't need to go through the stakeholders, you can apply your own. For example, you can join a network that is open to all. For example, research network under the ASEM Education Research Hub for Lifelong Learning, ASEM LLR. The Secretariat is now in Ireland. You can go to the website as in the slide. There's a 6 research network. You can become the member of the research network. There's some terms and conditions you can apply. The head of the ASEM LLR is the Professor Simias. So you can be a member of this research network. Then you can be visible in ASEM, or there's a Asia Europe Foundation in Singapore. You also can be active in what you call Asia Europe Rectors Conference. So you can present paper on any topics. Then you can be visible in ASEM. Or I don't know how many of you know there's a concept note under the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation. There you can submit a project proposal. Now in June is a session 1 and session 2. There's a session 1. All these things you can look at what you call Ministry of Education website. Every time when there's an open call for project proposal, we will advertise in the paper. So this project you can apply until USD 100,000, but you cannot see the money by end. They will pay to the contract or whatever. If you rent the what you call the hall, they will pay to. But maybe you can see money through if you become the presenter. So APEC have a lot of opportunities to write a concept note for the 21 economies. But the project you write, it cannot be just say that it's benefit to Malaysia or your own country. It must benefit all the 21 economies. So for example, a sample paper in the website, you can go to the APEC website and you can see. Okay, promote other. I know everybody is promoting yourself via university website and blog, but you need to be visible. Maybe you share your profile through Facebook, WhatsApp, and you need to have a good networking with stakeholders, officials. If you have a good network in Dr. Nazri and Dr. Guan, cannot already because they already young Roman. They already Sarah. Maybe you can have network with me. But I have another 16 years to go to teaching. So you also need to have a good networking with the stakeholders, officials. Next slide, please. So how you can, so now you're already visible. So what you can do, policy learning and research during international meeting. So what you can do, share best practices, learn best practices from other nations, compare policy document among nations, learn the process of agenda setting. So everybody maybe ask, what is agenda setting? Just now I said, during the ministerial meeting on ASEM in 2013, Malaysia set the agenda on balanced mobility. No other country proposed how we can bring more European students to Malaysia. We set the agenda. Until now, the proposal and the project still under the ASEM education process. So we set the agenda. And you can invite foreign experts to share their experience in developing policy for the benefit of their community. It means you can invite policymakers from other countries come to Malaysia and present their best practices, and then we can learn from them. And as a researcher, what you can do, we presentation of foreign experts during international meeting, we identify best practices in various fields. All these slides I talk about positive things, what we can do, what we can achieve, how we can become visible. Now I want to a small part of challenges. What is challenges you all will face during dealing with these stakeholders? Next slide, please. Next. So challenges is not only at our side, both sides. First, there are many people go to meeting, then they come back and sleep, no reporting, no follow through. So then the ministry also don't know what is the conclusion of the meeting, what we need to take from there and what we need to do. We don't know. Next, it's very hard to find the regional expert on policies and education, including language. Because when there's some people, they don't understand English, they want to prepare in their language only. So we need to be expert in, for example, in Spanish, like in Belgium. There's one part people speak French, one part speak what you call Belgian language. So we need to be expert on regional language also. Then when it comes to our side, this means the stakeholder side, we need to go many layers, bureaucracy, too many approving authorities. So you need to go for the official level, then you need to go for the HOD, and then you need to go to the Secretary General. Finally, you need to go to the minister. So maybe three parts already agree, the last part don't agree, you need to reverse again. So this is the too many what you call approaching authority. Then it's not easy to fulfill the expectation of the stakeholder. Today maybe I will handle the program, tomorrow my friend, and then you will ask again the same question I asked. So it's a problem to meet the expectation of the stakeholders. Next, so everybody know COVID pandemic. Maybe you will start I also worry when I do my what do you call PhD on internationalization and education. My friend all asked, bro, it's already pandemic, everybody cannot come ready. How you want to do PhD on internationalization? No more internationalization, it's a localization ready. But I put some justification how during this pandemic and after the pandemic, post-pandemic, how this internationalization and higher education can be enhanced. Then it's very hard to accept the what you call a practice recognizing the concept of agreeing to disagree. So maybe there's a proposal in the meeting you don't like. There's some 2-3 people don't like, but they don't talk. They just silent. During the tea break, this idea is not good. Then come back, listen again, this idea is not good. You need to voice out. If it's not a good idea, you just say it's not a good idea. Come and because in multilateral organization, it's not binding. But some people will tell, oh, if I tell, they will quote Malaysia. You need to have a good way to tell how to disagree on some proposal. So, I have another 20 minutes. So, I already come to my final slide. So, next slide. So, way forward. So, what I shared another more than 20 slides. International experience is important to prepare a strong policy paper in order to convince the stakeholders. So when you talk to the stakeholders, you need to talk confidently. Maybe the stakeholder will ask, why you introduce this policy or why you come out with this idea. We need to have a strong justification. Maybe in a politician, in their mind, they have the other idea. So you need to read the idea also. And involvement in various international organizations and international meetings will spur knowledge for what you call on policy formulation. When we involve in many international what you call meetings and organizations, you will have more ideas. I'm not a professor, just what you call a junior PhD, what you doctor. So, but I have experience working in Ministry of Higher Education and Ministry of Education more than 10 years. So, whatever experience I share is come from my boss, Dr. Nazri and Dr. Wan. There's a, what you call, I can share my experience. I draft a letter from beginning until end, all read. It means all correction. So I learned from them how to write dengan hormatnya saya merujuk pada perkara atas. I do not come from public, private. Then I need to know how to write the sentences. So then I learned how to do a cabinet paper. So when I first did my cabinet paper and sent to Dr. Nazri, he called me, he said, what is this? Then he teach me how to write the paper. And when I start doing my first PhD, I draft a questionnaire. Dr. Moshidi said, who want to answer your questionnaire? I sent a sample questionnaire to him. He said, who want to answer your questionnaire? Such a long question and a complicated questions. And then suddenly he flew to Kuala Lumpur, and I catch him at the ASEM LCCT. Dato, I need to meet you and ask about the questionnaire. Then I sit with him. So he teach me. So all this is a learning process is going on. It's not stopped. So when I first was seconded to the ASEM Education Secretary, I can speak Malay, but I cannot speak Bahasa Indonesia. So if you take the Grab or taxi, if you cannot speak Bahasa Indonesia, they say, Pak, will take 20 kilometers, but by right it's only 5 kilometers. Then I learned Bahasa Indonesia. Then I learned the road in Jakarta. Then they cannot cheat. So whatever, the language also is very important, because some in Malay you say tada, in Indonesia they say nada. So if you tell them tada, they don't know. So you need to know. So then when I go to Belgium, when I go to buy the coffee, I speak English, he speak French. So that also the problem. When I go to a supermarket, he speak in other language. So they say wherever you go overseas, you need to learn. Then you need to know also, quietly learn what is the policies they have. In Belgium, the province have the power to control the school. It is not the ministry. They can have the power to close the school, or they can change the curriculum. They just say, I already changed, and then inform the ministry. So all this, the process, how you can bring some example of policies from other country and use as a reference point to our country. So I have more time, so can I open for question if any? So last slide, please. So thank you. There's my email there and my mobile number. You can call me anytime, not after 12 p.m. Then I must sleep outside my house. So thank you for the opportunity given by IPPTN to share my experience, academia and policy research at the international context. So if anyone have questions, you can ask, and I can answer during there's a spare time for us. Thank you. Yes, please.
Can you please move to the
Thanks for this opportunity to share experiences. I just have first two questions, but I will not first is we discuss the relationship between the multilateral organizations and the certain countries. Now, how does the Secretariat of the organizations complement the home countries, respective countries, in formulating and implementing policies right from international protocols that are made? And then, secondly, what are the implications of a home country refusing to implement protocols, which some of in some instances they are even domesticated, because there are some international protocols that will require the legislature of the home country. There are those that also require the input of the legislature. Those are the implications and instances where the home country refused to implement such protocol. Thank you very much.
Okay, very good question. First question, how as a secretariat they will take out some what you call idea from the nation. For example, I mentioned about our proposal in during the ASEM education ministers meeting about the balanced mobility. So what we did, we include the proposal from the country in the chair's conclusion. We say, so there is a proposal from Malaysia, what you call balanced mobility program. Interest country can involve in the balanced mobility. So we bring the idea, include in the document. So whichever country is interested, they can join. So we entertain the country's proposal from that way. Second, on your international protocol, multilateral organization is non-binding. So it doesn't mean whatever they tell in the chair's conclusion, you need to apply in your country. Because some our local laws is not recognized, then we need to look at our whatever is applicable to our country. It doesn't imply anything to us, to the country. Doesn't follow the what you call whatever is introduced at the international level. Thank you. Any other questions?
Good morning.
Oh, from online.
Yeah,
Good morning.
I posted two questions. Doctor, thank you. I'm Dr. Lilis from School of Management. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yes.
Right,
We can
good.
hear you very well.
So, following your presentation, you mentioned that it's good practice that we follow up after a discussion or meeting. So how do
Yes.
we do that as a participant?
Okay.
With the aim of lobbying, we intend to lobby for something, so that's why we are present in the discussion and following the meeting. Okay, second question, you mentioned about you need to bring in clear justification, so that whoever your stakeholders are listening to you are convinced. So can you give a specific example as to the kind of justification that are needed? Thank you so much.
Okay. Two good questions also, like my wife already. Okay, I answered the second question was how your justification. When we bring the proposal of balanced mobility, there is a question how you want to bring this European student to Malaysia. So we cannot just tell that our universities have what you call international program they can come. We need to come out a specific project. From the project, we can invite all the countries to come to Malaysia. So that's why we introduced this ASEM AEI summer school. So from there, they come to Malaysia, they learn the culture, they know about our university, they know, I'm not telling the promoting my University Malaya. So they know how University Malaya is doing internationalization of education. So this type of the justification we need to give to the top management to make them convinced. If let's say you want to introduce a project under APEC, so this one also you need to, let's say you want to talk about how you want to establish international school in your country, but this is the prerogative of their country, whether they want to focus on international education, private education or their public education. So it's difficult to justify. So you need to have a strong justification that you bring the Cambridge or Singapore syllabus, then you will have a more curriculum, something like that. Your first question, how you want to follow through and follow up. After you go to the international meeting, you come back, you need to see what topic you have presented and what idea you bring, and you search for the relevant division. If you, let's say you want to talk about academic curriculum, then you go to Bagian Academic in JPT and send email to them and sit with them and discuss with them what you can enhance and what idea they can bring to enhance the academic curriculum. So this is my answers. Thank you. Any other questions? Main question.
Doctor, if Lilis again,
Yeah,
if I can continue with one more question.
yes, please.
Following your input just now that you said come back and follow up with the department, specific department, relevant department. So who would be the best person in that department that we should approach?
The director.
The director. All right.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I cannot see the question. Can someone read?
There's no question.
Okay, if there is no more question, thank you very much for your kind time. If anything wrong is come from me, anything good from come from my two bosses. Thank you.